Alone in the wilderness, what this camper encountered will haunt your dreams. Jack had always loved the idea of camping alone in the wilderness. Pure solitude, away from the digital buzz of city life, had a romantic charm. After researching, he chose a remote spot, deep within a dense, untouched forest. His first day was idyllic. He set up camp near a gurgling stream, and by evening, he was roasting marshmallows on an open fire. As the sky darkened, the tranquil sounds of the forest lulled him into a peaceful slumber. But the peace was short-lived. Around midnight, Jack was awakened by a soft whisper. He strained his ears, but the voice faded away. Thinking it was a dream, he tried to go back to sleep. The next night, the whisper returned, louder, more insistent. "Leave," it hissed. Jack sat up, his heart pounding. He shone his flashlight around the campsite, but there was nothing. Trying to calm his nerves, he attributed the voice to his imagination. On the third day, Jack discovered strange symbols carved into the trees surrounding his campsite. Circles, triangles, and other odd shapes, all drawn with what seemed like frantic urgency. He wondered if they were old markings from past campers or indigenous tribes. That evening, as he sat by the campfire, he felt eyes on him. Glancing around, he saw shadowy figures at the edge of the woods. They stayed just watching. Panicking, Jack threw more wood onto the fire, hoping the light would deter whatever was out there. But as the flames rose higher, so did the whispers, now turning into collective murmurs, echoing through the trees. By midnight, the murmurs grew louder, and the shadowy figures began to move closer. They circled the campsite, their features obscured by the darkness. Jack could feel their menacing presence, like vultures waiting for a kill. Remembering the knife in his backpack, he grabbed it and shouted, "Who are you? What do you want?" The figures stopped, and for a moment, the woods were silent. Then, in unison, they chanted, "You're on sacred ground. Leave before the dawn, or stay forever." Terrified, Jack packed his belongings, leaving behind anything that would slow him down. He began his journey back, navigating through the dense forest with only his flashlight as a guide. Every rustle, every twig snap felt like a threat. As dawn approached, he stumbled upon an old cabin. Hoping to find shelter, he cautiously entered. Inside, he found journals dating back decades. They belonged to previous campers, and as he skimmed through, he realized they all told similar tales of eerie encounters and shadowy figures. One journal entry from 1973 caught his attention. It read, "They're not human. They're guardians of this sacred land, protecting it from intruders. They gave me a choice: leave or become one of them. I chose to stay, to warn others." Jack dropped the journal, his heart racing. He understood the warning now. Those shadowy figures were past campers, forever trapped, warning others of the same fate. With renewed determination, Jack pushed on, finally emerging from the forest as the first rays of sunlight broke the horizon. He never went camping again and shared his tale with anyone willing to listen, hoping to save others from the haunting guardians of that cursed wilderness. Years later, a group of hikers would find a weathered journal near the stream where Jack had camped. The last entry read, "If you're reading this, leave now. They're watching, always watching." And somewhere, deep in the forest, another shadowy figure joined the guardians, waiting for the next intruder to venture into the woods.
haunting call of the Wendigo. The forest was cold and silent, its trees casting long, gnarled shadows in the dying light of day. A group of 5 friends, Mark, Lisa, Jenna, Rob, and Claire, were setting up camp deep within these woods, drawn by the promise of a secluded weekend away from the city. As night fell and the fire's glow painted their faces in shades of orange, Rob began to narrate tales of the infamous Wendigo, a malevolent spirit said to haunt these very woods, preying on lost souls and turning them into cannibalistic entities. Legend says, Rob began, his eyes gleaming, that the Wendigo once was human. Driven to cannibalism by hunger, these people transformed into monsters, their hearts turning to ice. They're said to be tall, skeletal creatures with antlers, always hungry. Jenna, visibly unnerved, whispered, "Can we not talk about this here? Especially in the dark." Claire laughed. "Don't be scared. It's just a legend." The night progressed with laughter, s'mores, and more cheerful stories. But as they were about to retire to their tents, a distant, haunting howl echoed through the woods, freezing their blood. "Probably just a wolf," Mark mused, but his voice wavered. However, as the night deepened, the sounds grew stranger. Whispers seemed to float between the trees, echoing words that sounded eerily familiar. It was as if the woods were playing back their conversations. In the darkest hours, Jenna was jolted awake by a chilling scream. Bursting from her tent, she saw Lisa, eyes wide with terror, pointing towards the edge of their campsite. There, illuminated faintly by the fire, stood a gaunt figure with antlers, its eyes glowing a pale blue. "It's the Wendigo," Rob yelled. The creature lunged, swift as a shadow. Rob, thinking quickly, grabbed a burning log and hurled it towards the creature, causing it to retreat with a deafening screech. They had no choice but to abandon their camp and flee. Navigating the forest in the dark was treacherous. The group got separated, with Mark and Claire heading one way and Jenna, Lisa, and Rob another. Mark and Claire stumbled upon a cave and decided to hide there. The echoing whispers continued, but now they were interspersed with growls. Hours felt like days as they huddled together, praying for dawn. Meanwhile, Jenna, Lisa, and Rob found an old cabin. They barricaded themselves inside, hoping it would offer protection. The windows revealed glimpses of the Wendigo prowling outside, its form distorted and shimmering as if not entirely of this world. In a last-ditch effort, Rob remembered the legend stating that the Wendigo was repelled by fire. He set a ring of fire around the cabin, using whatever flammable they could find. As dawn approached, the Wendigo, repelled by the fire, let out a final ear-piercing scream and retreated into the depths of the forest. Exhausted and traumatized, the 3 survivors made their way back to their campsite. To their horror, they found the remains of the cave Mark and Claire had hidden in. There was no sign of them, just a chilling message written on a rock outside, "Always hungry." Realizing the gravity of their situation, the 3 decided to head back to civilization, marking their path to warn others of the dangers lurking in the woods. They made a pact never to speak of that night again. However, every winter, when the nights grew cold and long, Jenna, Lisa, and Rob would hear faint, haunting whispers outside their homes, reminding them of the terror that still lurked in the depths of the forest, always waiting, always hungry.
In the heart of San Jose, California, shrouded in the fog that rolls off the bay, lies the Winchester Mystery House, an architectural anomaly and a monument to supernatural obsession. The sprawling estate, with its labyrinth of rooms, staircases that lead nowhere, and doors that open into brick walls, was the lifelong project of Sarah Winchester, heiress to the Winchester rifle fortune. Legend has it that the house is cursed, its endless construction a means to appease the spirits of those fallen by the bullets of the gun that won the West. Sarah Winchester's story began in tragedy. After the death of her husband and child, Sarah sought the guidance of a medium who foretold that the spirits of those killed by Winchester rifles had placed a dark curse on her family. The medium warned that the spirits would haunt her to her grave unless she built a home for them and never stopped building. Thus began the creation of the Winchester Mystery House. The house grew under the constant hammering of construction, its original 7 rooms expanding into a maze of 160 rooms. Staircases ascended to ceilings, doors opened to sheer drops, and hallways doubled back on themselves. Workers toiled under Sarah's precise instructions, building oddities meant to confuse and placate the restless spirits. Locals whispered about eerie sounds and ghostly figures seen in the windows, fueling rumors that the house was indeed haunted. One stormy night, a traveler named Thomas, whose lineage traced back to a man killed by a Winchester rifle, found himself at the gates of the mansion, seeking shelter. The aging Sarah, sensing a kindred spirit in the weary traveler, welcomed him in. Unbeknownst to her, Thomas bore a deep-seated resentment for the Winchester legacy. As Sarah led Thomas through the maze of her creation, she spoke of her belief in the supernatural forces at play and her hope that the building could atone for her family's sins. The house seemed to breathe with a life of its own, the wind howling through its many corridors like the whispers of the dead. At midnight, drawn by an inexplicable pull, Thomas found himself outside the seance room where Sarah communicated with the spirits. The door, usually locked, creaked open as if inviting him. Inside, the room was arranged with 13 chairs, one for Sarah, and the rest for the spirits she believed attended her nightly. Overcome by a surge of anger and grief for his ancestor, Thomas confronted Sarah, accusing her of madness and declaring that no amount of construction could compensate for the lives taken by Winchester rifles. As the confrontation escalated, the candles flickered and a cold wind swept through the room, extinguishing the lights. In the darkness, Thomas felt a chilling presence. The air thickened, as if the spirits themselves had encircled him. Sarah's voice broke through the tension, her tone suddenly calm, resigned. She confessed that she too felt the curse's weight and had long awaited the spirit's final judgment. Suddenly, the house trembled as if in the grip of an earthquake. Thomas heard the spirit's wails, a tormenting chorus that seemed both to accuse and mourn. He fled the room, the house's confusing passageways a mirror to his panic. Behind him, doors slammed shut, guided by unseen hands, and the walls seemed to whisper of death and despair. As dawn broke, Thomas found himself outside, the house ominously quiet behind him. He looked back once, half expecting Sarah to appear at a window, but there was only the silent facade. When the townsfolk ventured into the house later, they found no trace of Sarah Winchester. Some say she was taken by the spirits, her soul condemned to wander the halls of her creation forever. The Winchester Mystery House stands to this day, a monument to grief and guilt. Visitors report strange occurrences, footsteps in empty rooms, cold spots, and doors that close of their own volition. Whether these are the manifestations of the cursed spirits or Sarah's unsettled spirit remains a mystery. Thomas's encounter at the Winchester house haunted him for the rest of his days. He never escaped the chilling whispers of that night, a constant reminder of the curse of the Winchester rifle. The house remains, a curious destination for those drawn to the darker corners of history. Its corridors echoing with the stories of the past, as if the walls themselves are compelled to remember. In the shadows of the Winchester Mystery House, the boundary between the living and the dead, is as thin as the veil of fog that blankets the estate, a testament to the power of belief, the weight of guilt, and the ever-present past, demanding to be acknowledged.
The haunting legacy of Miss Marguerite, the doll who played for keeps. The grandeur of the Stafford estate was legendary in the town of Hollowbrook. And in its illustrious history, there was but one tarnish: the mysterious disappearance of little Emily Stafford. Her last known possession? A porcelain doll gifted to her by an unknown visitor, Miss Marguerite. The doll was beautiful, with curls of golden hair and a dress of the purest silk. Her blue eyes seemed to possess an awareness, which many dismissed as the work of an exquisite craftsman. But those who held Miss Marguerite felt a coldness, a heaviness that was unnatural. Emily adored the doll, taking her everywhere. The staff would whisper how they sometimes found the doll in places Emily hadn't been, or how its expression seemed to shift ever so slightly. Emily's laughter began to sound hollow, and her once vibrant eyes dulled. One fateful night, as a storm raged outside, Emily vanished. The only clue to her disappearance was Miss Marguerite, sitting upright on her bed, her blue eyes seemingly more vivid. The devastated Staffords locked the doll away, but tragedy seemed to cling to them. Fires broke out inexplicably, loved ones fell ill, and a shroud of sorrow engulfed the estate. Years turned to decades, and the estate passed through many hands. Each owner reported strange occurrences, shadowy figures in the corner of their eyes, children's laughter echoing in the halls, and always the cold, haunting gaze of Miss Marguerite, regardless of where she was stored. Elaine, an antique collector, became the next caretaker of the doll. Enchanted by its craftsmanship, she showcased Miss Marguerite in her living room. But soon, Elaine began to notice oddities. Every morning, the doll seemed to be in a different pose. And whenever she tried to capture these anomalies on camera, the pictures would come out blurred or distorted. Curious, Elaine invited a local historian, Mr. Anderson, to learn more about the doll. The more they dug, the more unsettling the truths became. Miss Marguerite was crafted by a witch, centuries ago, as a vessel. A vessel that could harbor a spirit, holding it bound and seeking a living soul to trade places with. They surmised that Emily's spirit was trapped within the doll, and that the witch's dark energy sought a new host, moving from one owner to the next, leaving a trail of misfortune. Determined to free Emily and rid herself of the cursed doll, Elaine sought the help of a renowned spiritualist, Madame Clara. They conducted a ritual to sever the bond, chanting ancient verses and surrounding the doll with protective talismans. The atmosphere grew cold, and a child's voice echoed, "Let me go." The room trembled, lights flickered, and with one final harrowing scream, silence. Morning light revealed a transformed doll. Its eyes now seemed empty, devoid of malice or consciousness. Emily's spirit had been set free, and the witch's dark energy banished. But as Elaine placed the doll in a box, intending to bury it deep, she noticed a small note tucked within its dress. "Play for keeps, and keeps you shall. The vessel may change, but the game remains." Terrified, Elaine realized the game was far from over. The witch's energy was out there, seeking a new vessel, waiting for its next player. And the game of keeps had only just begun. As the chilling echoes of Miss Marguerite's legacy reverberate, one thing remains clear: the game of keeps is relentless. Stay with us, Us together will uncover more hidden tales that lurk in the shadows. If you dare to dive deeper into the world of the unknown, hit that subscribe button and join us in our quest. Remember, every story has a dark side. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss a single tale.
All of it really started as a dare. A simple notion of throwing care into the wind and embracing the thrill of risk as a way to break up the boredom of yet another long winter. So, armed with our love for adventure and a bit of a reckless spirit, Alex, Jamie, and I set off for a weekend camping trip to tackle the frozen lake. There were stories, whispers, tales about a Wendigo haunting the woods around the lake. We chuckled off the thought, considering that was just an old wives' tale to scare the curious ones. But we were curious, and not easily scared. We didn't think of ourselves that way, at least. The trip started under a cold, pale, gray sky and a sharp, frosty air. The frozen lake was sequestered from the nearest town by miles. It nestled with its dark peaks. As we hiked in, the silence of the forest was palpable, a quiet so deep it felt like another world. We camped right off of the southern shore of the lake, where the trees were somewhat scattered, and the water there reached out to full view and formed a large mirror to the leaden sky. The first night, we sat about the campfire. The crackle and spark of it was some little living comfort against the encroaching cold. The woods were still around us, too still. Alex made jokes about the Wendigo, calling into the dark with mock calls and laughter. I'd contributed, and Jamie had, to the laughter, but the unease kind, you know. The night had deepened, and the chill, and our isolation by this time, must have become acute. Strange noises punctuated the silence, the cracking of ice, the rustling of leaves, and something else. A dragging sound that might belong only outside our firelight. We huddled closer, telling ourselves it was just a deer or some other nocturnal creature. Morning brought no light on the creepy atmosphere. Walking around, just near the tent, they found large, disturbing tracks in the snow. They were neither human nor animal, with elongated claws that drove deeply into the white blanket, which covered the earth. But curiosity had bitten deep, and the precaution was thrown to the winds for them to follow the tracks. Tracks led us deeper into the woods, at length, to a part of the forest that seemed unaltered by the flow of time. The tree arches and overhead branches twisted into a grasping canopy. It was in a small clearing that we found it. A cabin, old and decrepit, its windows dark, the door slightly ajar. The tracks led right to it, disappearing into the shadows inside. We approached, hearts pounding, each step reluctant. The hut seemed empty, perhaps except for the hut itself and all the belongings left behind by the previous habitants. An old moth-eaten fur coat and dusty, lying draped over a chair, an axe, a really old one, rusted and stuck in a chopping block outside. That was when we heard it, the scream cut short, coming from back towards our camp. We took off running, slipping on the snow, our breath coming in gasps. But when we got there, Jamie was gone. His backpack lay on the ground, torn open, with its contents all over the snow. We called for him, our voices desperate, but only silence answered. Hours had passed, hours fading into the evening as the temperature dropped, and it seemed that the forest had swallowed us, choking, suffocating from its hugeness. There were further sounds circumventing us then, whispers born from the expiring wind, a laugh, a growl. The Wendigo was real, and it was hunting us. We hadn't slept that night, and there were little communication. At first light, we were moving out of the woods, making good time despite our exhaustion. We didn't stop until we reached the car, and even then, the relief of escape felt hollow without Jamie. The police were called. A search party was formed, but they found nothing. No sign of Jamie, just his torn backpack and those strange tracks, which they had no explanation for. They tell you not to come back, that the mystery of Frozen Lake and its Wendigo belong to shadows. Now, here I am, miles from those woods that are always full of dread, sitting and telling this story as it should be told. Jamie is still missing, his face posted on posters posted for any information, promising a come-home reward. But I know we'll never see him again. But the Wendigo has owned him, and still waits out there in the icy shadows of frozen lake, waiting for others, with hungry waiting patience, for any with curiosity and bravery to heed its call. Sometimes, in the silence of a snowy night, I can still hear it whispering, calling me back to the woods. But I will never return. Some legends are too true to test, and some places are meant to be left alone.
Terrifying night in the desert, a skinwalker encounter. Arid Springs wasn't just a name, it was a description. A town that had withstood the test of time and the relentless heat of the desert. For Sarah, Tom, Lisa, and Jake, the allure of this remote place lay not only in its scenic beauty, but also in its myths. Having been friends since freshman year, the foursome had shared countless adventures. But this trip, inspired by Lisa's tales of her hometown, promised to be unlike any other. Lisa had always spoken of Arid Springs with a blend of fondness and caution. Her stories filled with the vibrant history of the town and its people, but also with darker legends whispered only in the dimming light of evening. Arriving at the old home of Lisa's grandparents, the friends were enveloped in a wave of nostalgia. Mary, Lisa's grandmother, was a keeper of tales, her voice a melodic blend of warmth and wisdom. But it was Grandpa Joe, with his deep-set eyes and weathered hands, who unveiled the chilling story of the skinwalker as dusk settled over the desert. As the tale went, the skinwalker was an entity born of betrayal and dark rites. A shapeshifter that could assume any form, it was said to feed on the very essence of unsuspecting souls. Its most terrifying feature was its eyes' gateways to an eternal void. Sarah, ever the thrill-seeker, proposed a midnight venture into the desert. Armed with torches, a sense of adventure, and the skepticism of the modern age, they set out, dismissing the tale as a mere product of folklore. But the desert, under the vast starlit sky, had other plans. The initial hours were filled with awe. The beauty of the desert at night was hypnotic. However, when a cold, unnatural wind began to blow, erasing their footprints in the sand, a sense of foreboding took hold. The once familiar sounds of the night were now replaced by an unsettling silence, punctuated only by their own heartbeats. Tom, with his keen eyes, was the first to spot the figure. At the edge of their torchlight, what appeared to be a coyote shifted and morphed. Rising to stand on two legs, its silhouette eerily human. Its skin looked like a patchwork of various creatures, crudely stitched together. And then, those eyes abyssal and haunting. Panic and disbelief gripped them. Recollections of Grandpa Joe's warnings echoed in their minds. They decided to retreat, but the skinwalker had other plans. It began mimicking their earlier conversations, their laughter, distorting them into something malicious. The desert, once a serene landscape, now felt like a labyrinth of doom. Jake, in a desperate attempt to challenge the legend, defiantly stared into the entity's eyes. The effect was immediate and harrowing. He crumpled to the ground, his body twitching violently, his voice releasing a chilling scream that seemed to emanate from another realm. Refusing to abandon their friend, the trio rallied. Lisa, drawing upon memories of her grandmother's chants, began singing a song that spoke of protection and light. Sarah and Tom, using their jackets, fashioned a makeshift stretcher for Jake. Hours felt like days. With each step, the weight of the desert's legends bore down on them. Just when all seemed lost, they stumbled upon a circle of ancient stones, each etched with symbols of the desert's earliest inhabitants. Within this circle, the skinwalker's power seemed diminished. Its form wavered, its mocking voices became distant whispers. As dawn's first light painted the horizon, the entity retreated, leaving behind a group of friends forever changed. Jake, though scarred, slowly recovered, forever cautious of the night. Back in Arid Springs, their tale was met with a somber understanding. The town, it seemed, bore the weight of its legends with silent resilience. The foursome returned to their city lives, but the desert's mysteries, its terror, and its beauty remained etched in their souls. And Arid Springs continued to stand, a guardian between the world and the ancient horrors of the desert.
In the fertile yet secluded lands of Adams, Tennessee, the Bell family lived a modest life on their expansive farm. John Bell, a stern yet fair man, was well respected in the community. Beside him stood his wife, Lucy, a gentle soul known for her compassionate heart. Together, they raised their children, among whom Betsy, the youngest daughter, shone with her vibrant spirit and curiosity. The tranquility of their lives was shattered one late harvest evening in 1817 as John encountered a chilling sight in the cornfields. A bizarre creature, with the body of a dog and the head of a rabbit, stared back at him with piercing yellow eyes before vanishing without a trace. John shook off the unsettling feeling, dismissing it as fatigue from a long day's work. However, that night marked the beginning of a series of inexplicable events. Sounds of knocking and scratching emanated from the walls of their home, and whispers filled the night air, too low to discern, but too persistent to ignore. The family initially tried to rationalize these occurrences, blaming them on animals or the wind, but the phenomena only intensified, growing in both frequency and malevolence. Betsy became the focus of the entity's torment. She would wake with bruises dotting her arms, and the sound of her name being hissed in her ear by an unseen force. The physical attacks escalated rapidly, leaving the family desperate and fearful for their daughter's well-being. As the haunting continued, the entity began to communicate using discernible speech, expressing anger and resentment towards certain family members, particularly John and Betsy. The voice, both malevolent and cunning, claimed to be the witch of a neighbor with whom John had a bitter dispute years prior. The entity, which the locals began to call the Bell Witch, revealed intimate details of the family's lives and the secrets of the community, sowing distrust. It sang hymns, quoted scripture, and engaged in intelligent conversation, its voice echoing through the house at all hours, chilling the spines of all who heard it. One night, in a terrifying display of power, the witch pulled Betsy from her bed as her family watched helplessly. The air filled with the girl's screams and the sinister laughter of the witch. John, driven to the brink, sought help from local figures and even attempted an exorcism, but nothing could alleviate the suffering inflicted upon his family. As word of the haunting spread, curious visitors, including notable figures like General Andrew Jackson, ventured to the Bell farm. Legend has it that even Jackson's carriage was immobilized by an unseen force as he approached the property, prompting him to exclaim, "By the Eternal, I saw nothing, but I shall not fight an American witch." The Bell Witch's torment continued unabated until John Bell's mysterious and untimely death in 1820. It was whispered that he had been poisoned by the witch, as a vial of unknown liquid was found by his bedside, which the witch later claimed to have administered. After his death, the activity around the farm decreased, and Betsy's physical torments ceased. However, the psychological scars remained, etched deep into her soul. Betsy eventually moved away, marrying a childhood friend who had stood by her through the ordeal. The witch's voice faded over time but was never truly silenced, promising to return in 7 years. She kept her promise, appearing briefly to John Bell's son, John Bell Jr., to discuss the past and future, including predictions of the Civil War and other significant events. The haunting of the Bell Witch left an indelible mark on the community and became a tale of caution among those who dared to speak of it. The farm remained in the Bell family for generations, each recounting the chilling tales of their ancestors and the wrath of the witch they had faced. Today, the story of the Bell Witch continues to captivate the imagination and fear of those who hear it, a timeless reminder of the darkness that can lurk behind the most ordinary facades, waiting to emerge under the right or perhaps wrong circumstances.
Inferno's Embrace, the Crucifix Pyre. Elmsworth was the kind of village described in fairy tales, a picturesque hamlet with cobbled streets lined with rustic houses. But the once harmonious air was punctuated by a nightmarish episode when Amelia, the black-haired village belle, started manifesting unsettling behavior. Her transformation began subtly. At first, it was just distant stares or muttered words. But it wasn't long before Amelia's actions became overtly sinister. Animals would grow agitated around her, and electronic devices would malfunction. The tipping point was a Sunday Mass. As the parishioners sang hymns, Amelia's voice rose above the rest, morphing into an inhuman scream, "None shall escape." With superhuman strength, she upturned the church pews, her eyes completely white. Father Anthony, despite having confronted multiple possessions, felt a chill run down his spine. The atmosphere was thick with a malevolent presence. Drawing his crucifix, he approached her, only to watch in horror as it burst into flames. The event sent shockwaves throughout Elmsworth. The very symbol of God's protection had been reduced to ashes. Desperate murmurs spread, questioning if they were witnessing the manifestation of an unbeatable evil. Father Anthony, refusing to cower, set up a vigil in the ancient village church. He arranged for Amelia to be restrained, ensuring her safety and that of others. Gathering sacred artifacts, relics, and gallons of holy water, he commenced the exorcism rites. However, the demons seemed to revel in the challenge. Each sacred object was met with scorching flames, leaving behind a trail of ash and despair. Amelia's once melodious voice now conveyed the ancient evil's chilling taunts. By the third day, the demon introduced itself as Balzareth, a forgotten entity predating most known demons. It claimed its power was bolstered by humanity's faltering faith, enabling it to turn religious symbols into pyres of hopelessness. Father Anthony, determined more than ever, thought of an unconventional approach. He remembered stories of collective prayer and faith having unparalleled power. Rallying the villagers, he urged them to recall moments when their faith had been the most potent, asking them to pen down personal testaments of miracles, love, and hope. These letters were assembled into a large, symbolic crucifix. The sheer weight of personal convictions and unwavering faith embedded within those papers was palpable. The moment Father Anthony presented this paper crucifix to Amelia, the atmosphere shifted. Balzareth roared in fury, the resonance shaking the very foundations of the church. But the paper crucifix held its ground, glowing with a divine radiance. For hours, a battle of wills ensued. The church echoed with angelic choruses, countering the demon's infernal screams. Every individual in Elmsworth channeled their energy towards Amelia, their collective faith creating an impenetrable barrier. As dawn's first light streamed through the church's stained glass windows, Balzareth, weakened and overpowered by Elmsworth's unyielding faith, was expelled from Amelia. The aftermath was a village united stronger than ever. The story of their victory over an ancient evil became legendary, with the paper crucifix preserved for posterity, a beacon of hope and testament to the indomitable spirit of collective faith. The end.
They looked like us when nightmares knock on your door. Jenna's house, nested at the end of a lonely lane, always felt like a sanctuary. But that fateful evening would forever alter her perception of home and safety. As they were about to start their family movie night, the unexpected knock came. Jenna, in her innocence, opened the door to find Mrs. Matthews. She appeared normal, yet her eyes betrayed something cold and distant. "Can I come in?" "I'm so cold," she murmured. It wasn't her voice. It was devoid of warmth, a mere imitation. Max, Jenna's son, in his naive curiosity, whispered, "Why are so many neighbors outside, Mom?" Jenna's heart raced as she saw familiar faces from the neighborhood, all emanating that same vacant expression. Their bodies seemed human, but their movements were coordinated, too precise. Suddenly, Mrs. Matthews lunged. Her hand, icy and strong, clasped Jenna's wrist. The sheer force took Jenna by surprise, but Max's quick thinking, using a vase as a weapon, saved them. The vile black substance that oozed from Mrs. Matthews' head was unlike any blood Jenna had seen. Retreating, the family fortified their living room, turning it into a makeshift fortress. As time wore on, the knocks became more frequent, more desperate. Pleading voices mimicked their relatives and friends. "Let us in, Jenna. We just want to be with you." Jenna, in a moment of clarity, remembered her old ham radio in the attic. Maybe they could call for help. As she made her way upstairs, every creak of the floorboards felt like a giveaway. Once in the attic, she fumbled with the radio, sending out distress signals. A crackling voice responded, "Stay inside. Do not let them in. Help is on the way." Downstairs, the mimicry grew louder, more aggressive. They heard the voice of Jenna's late husband, a cruel play on her emotions. "Jenna, open the door. I've come back for you." Hours felt like days. But eventually, the monstrosities outside dwindled as daylight approached. Their retreat was as coordinated as their approach, and Jenna's heart ached thinking of her real neighbor's fate. With the dawn's first light, military vehicles approached. Men in hazmat suits surveyed the area. One of them approached Jenna's door. "It's safe now," he said, his voice muffled by the mask. But nothing felt safe anymore. The ordeal was over, but the haunting memories lingered. Jenna knew that home would never feel the same again, and every knock would be met with suspicion. In the aftermath, they learned the horrifying truth. A failed experiment had turned the townsfolk into these abominations, creatures capable of mimicking their prey. Jenna's family was one of the few that survived unscathed, but the trauma left scars that would never fade. The world moved on, but for Jenna and Max, the terror of that night would forever echo in every unexpected knock on the door.
In the veiled whispers of the Atlantic, a remote island lay shrouded in perpetual fog. Its most notable feature, an ancient lighthouse, stood abandoned, its light long extinguished. Alex, an intrepid photographer with a penchant for the eerie and desolate, rowed towards this forgotten speck of land. His camera was his faithful companion, his tool to capture the whispers of the past. Upon landing, the damp, salty air mingled with the earthy scent of decay. The island was unsettlingly silent, save for the occasional creak of the lighthouse swaying with the wind. In the dilapidated keeper's cottage, Alex discovered a journal, its leather cover cracked and pages yellowed. The entries were cryptic, hinting at secrets swallowed by time and a darkness that lingered like the fog. Driven by curiosity, Alex ventured deeper into the island. The ground beneath his feet was littered with the relics of the forgotten. A rusted compass, a shattered lantern, photographs too faded to reveal their stories. The wind seemed to carry hushed warnings as shadows danced between the gnarled trees. In a secluded part of the island, a hidden cave beckoned. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of moss and something unidentifiably sweet. The walls were adorned with symbols that pulsed with a phosphorescent glow, illuminating the cave in an eerie light. The symbols were neither friendly nor entirely hostile, existing in a state of limbo between welcoming and warning. Among the scattered belongings, Alex found a locket containing a photograph of a stern man, presumably the lighthouse keeper, and a woman with a sorrowful smile. Their eyes seemed to follow him, whispering a tale of love and loss. Guided by the journal, Alex deciphered the route to a concealed chamber beneath the lighthouse. As he descended, the air grew colder, and his breath materialized in icy puffs. Objects began to move of their own accord, skittering across the floor and whispering in unknown tongues. In the heart of the chamber, the ghost of the lighthouse keeper materialized. His apparition was sorrowful, bound to the earth by a heartbreak and betrayal that tainted his afterlife. He spoke of a cursed treasure buried beneath the island, its darkness feeding the haunting. To free the ghost and himself, Alex had to align the symbols from the cave in a specific sequence, each one echoing a part of the keeper's tragic tale. His hands trembled, not just from the cold, but from the weight of history he was unearthing. With each correct alignment, the chamber's atmosphere lightened, the oppressive darkness receding like the tide. As the final symbol clicked into place, a luminous tranquility suffused the island. The curse lifted, and the ghost of the keeper smiled, his form dissolving into motes of light that drifted upwards, merging with the mist. The island, liberated from its haunted past, seemed to breathe a sigh of relief. Alex captured the last vestiges of the spectral light with his camera, the images a testament to his journey and the soul he had freed. With the lighthouse now silent and serene, he left the island, the boat lighter than when he had arrived. His photographs would tell the tale of the haunted island, a narrative of darkness, discovery, and redemption. With the journal tucked safely under his arm, Alex knew he had just captured more than just photographs. He had documented a profound personal journey and unearthed a story that transcended time. As his boat drifted away from the island, the fog seemed to lift, and for a moment the lighthouse glowed faintly, as if bidding him farewell. Alex left the island not just with unique images, but with an experience that would forever enrich his understanding of the unseen world. Back on the mainland, Alex organized his photographs and notes, preparing for his next exhibition. The story of the island and its spectral inhabitant would undoubtedly captivate his audience, offering them a glimpse into the mysterious and the supernatural. His adventure had not only provided him with incredible shots, but also deepened his appreciation for the stories hidden in forgotten places. As the images developed, Alex noticed details he hadn't seen while on the island: subtle apparitions, ghostly silhouettes, and faint lights. Each photograph was a window into the island's soul, each frame a narrative frozen in time. In the weeks that followed, Alex's exhibition opened to critical acclaim. Viewers were drawn into the haunting beauty of the island, moved by the tale of the lighthouse keeper's unresolved past. The exhibition not only showcased Alex's photographic skills, but also his ability to unearth and tell a compelling story.
The eerie disappearance of James. The small town of Eldridge was no stranger to tales of ghosts and abandoned properties, but none had ever captivated its inhabitants as much as the mysterious vanishing of James Middleton. It was a stormy October night when James, a budding journalist, had informed his best friend, Clara, of a lead. He believed the abandoned mansion at the town's outskirts held a story, something bigger than any scoop he'd ever chased. That was the last time anyone saw him. A week of relentless searching yielded nothing. James seemed to have vanished into thin air until Claire, fueled by grief and determination, stumbled upon his journal. The last entry detailed his plans to visit the mansion that fateful night. Armed with this new lead, Clara, alongside James's younger brother, Alex, decided to explore the mansion. Inside, they found rooms filled with antique furniture covered in dust and cobwebs. But one room stood out. The study, while just as aged, showed signs of recent activity, an oil lamp still burning, and a pile of papers scattered on the desk. The papers contained sketches of what seemed to be a hidden chamber within the mansion, marked with the symbol of an eye. Following the sketches, they discovered a secret door in the study's bookshelf. Behind it, a winding staircase descended into darkness. The duo hesitated only briefly before descending. The air grew colder as they reached the bottom, revealing a vast chamber filled with ritualistic symbols and candles. At the center was a life-size statue of an eye, and beneath it, James's camera. Eagerly, Claire reviewed the camera's footage, hoping for answers. The final recording showed James narrating his exploration of the chamber. Suddenly, shadows danced across the walls, taking humanoid shapes. James's breathing became erratic as an otherworldly voice whispered, "You shouldn't have come here." The footage ended abruptly. Horrified, Clara and Alex found an old book next to the statue, detailing the history of the mansion. It belonged to a cult that believed in achieving immortality by offering souls to the eye. The ritual was to be completed on stormy nights, just like the night James disappeared. Piecing together the puzzle, Clara and Alex concluded that James had unknowingly become a victim of the cult's ritual. Determined to save him, they decided to reverse the ritual. Using the instructions from the book, and with the storm outside, they began the incantation. As they chanted, the shadows reappeared, swirling around the room. Clara held onto James's camera tightly, using its flash to dispel the encroaching darkness. The eye statue began to crack, revealing a portal beneath. From it, a disoriented James emerged, saved from the clutches of the otherworldly realm. The trio quickly left the mansion, sealing its entrance behind them. They vowed never to let its secrets escape, protecting Eldridge from the darkness within. But every stormy night, whispers traveled through the town, of shadows lurking and an eye that forever watched, waiting for its next offering. The mansion remained a silent testament to the nightmarish reality that nearly claimed James, ensuring that Eldridge's residence always had a tale to tell on cold, stormy nights.
There's something inherently thrilling about disconnecting from the world to embrace the wilderness. Camping has always been that escape for me, the ultimate adventure. But there's one trip I can never forget, one that transformed the allure of untouched nature into a realm of nightmares. Our destination was a secluded spot known only to a few avid campers, a hidden gem tucked away from the well-trodden paths. The drive there was a journey through time, leaving behind the clamor of civilization for the serene, untouched beauty of the wild. My companions, Jake, Sarah, and Mia, shared stories and laughter, blissfully unaware of the chilling adventure that awaited us. As we set up camp under the canopy of ancient trees, the sense of isolation was exhilarating. The nearest sign of human life was miles away, and as night fell, the sky revealed a breathtaking tapestry of stars, unmarred by city lights. Our first night unfolded with the crackling of the campfire and the soothing symphony of the nocturnal wilderness. But as the hours waned, a subtle shift occurred. Unfamiliar whispers seemed to weave through the trees, a chilling contrast to the natural sounds we had grown accustomed to. We joked about it being the wind or a curious animal, but an unspoken unease settled over the group. The real terror began on the second night. Lying in my tent, I was jolted awake by a sound that pierced the tranquil night. A guttural growl, so close it felt like it was right beside me. Frozen in fear, I listened as the sound receded, only for the whispers to return, louder and more frenzied than before. Emerging from the tent, I saw Jake and Sarah standing motionless, staring into the darkness. Mia was nowhere to be seen. The air was charged with a palpable dread, and the forest seemed to close in around us. It was then we heard it. A scream, unmistakably Mia's, coming from the depths of the woods. Without thinking, we dashed towards the sound, our flashlights cutting through the darkness. The forest seemed alive, every shadow a lurking menace. We found Mia, trembling and inconsolable, unable to articulate what she had seen, only repeating, "It wasn't human." The decision to leave was immediate, but as we hurriedly packed, the whispers grew into cacophonous laughter, as if the forest itself mocked our plight. Every rustle of the leaves felt like a warning, urging us faster. The trek back to our car was a blur of panic and adrenaline, every sound a potential threat. The drive back was silent, each of us lost in our thoughts, trying to make sense of the night's events. The relief of returning to the safety of our homes was overshadowed by the lingering fear of what we had experienced. The wilderness had always been my sanctuary, but now it held a sinister note, a reminder that some mysteries are best left undiscovered. The clarity of daylight did little to dispel the shadows of that night. We spoke little of it afterward, perhaps in an attempt to dismiss it as a trick of our imagination. But the memory of those whispers, the unseen terror in
Spontaneously, a group of 4 friends decided, inspired by an instinct for adventurism, and penetrated deeply into the core of the infamous Whispering Woods. The story of an abandoned cabin seemed to warp and become a dark reality, hidden deep within its depths, filled the air with whispers, until that night. The woods welcomed us with an eerie silence, a stark contrast to the lively banter that filled our small group. Jack, who never left his camera on standby and was always prepared to shoot. Sarah, the doubter. And Alex, whose interest in everything supernatural seemed to be never-ending. All of us, being between excitement and fear, went deeper into the forest as the shadows were lengthening, and the path under our feet started to be less noticeable. Approaching the cabin felt like stepping into another world, one in which the battered structure had been swallowed by the surrounding wilderness and stood there as evidence for all the tales that, until then, had always been waved off. The door was creaking on its hinges, and the last tinny-voiced complaint came from behind as we made our entry into what would become our campsite for the night. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of mold and decay. The scene, of course, had not budged. The half-set table, the book left open as though any minute the one reading it would return. And children's pictures on the floor, their bright colors peculiarly dark, so they lay in that unfriendly light. And as the outside was now filled with its darkness, it seemed that some kind of growing darkness was taking place inside, now rooting in our hearts, and isolation in the cabin, looking one of those attractive possibilities, but now nothing less than a trap. When the murmurs started, faint, indecipherable, we tried to console ourselves that they were none other than the wind. But at night, this murmur deepened to an intensity that it used to have by day, until there were very distinct voices calling us or calling each other, or maybe calling something else. Seeking a distraction, we turned our attention to the book we had found. On aged, yellowed pages was a story not of our seeking, but that of a diary, a record of someone's life within these very walls. Innocently enough, the entries began. A family, with high hopes for their fresh start, moved into the cabin. However, reading further in, the tone changes. From very sunny and wonderful pictures, the author leads in a feeling of oppression. From seeing shadows move in the corner of your eyes to whispers that become stronger from night to night. And, lastly, an entry that put a scare into me. The woods whisper truths we are not meant to hear. We are leaving before it's too late. The book fell silent, but the rest of the pages lay blank, just as it seemed the writer had put them down when she took up her warning and fled. The air in the cabin grew oppressively thick. It suffocated one. Now, that courage, though playful before, could never have been there. It was gone, replaced by a fear that could be described as primal. Not alone. That was clear now by the many whispers. They were around us, inside the cabin, every voice a thread in the tapestry of terror. Our night was spent in a vigil, too afraid to sleep, too mesmerized by the horror of our situation to consider leaving. The cabin, the woods seemed to close in on us, a living entity aware of our presence and displeased by it. When finally dawn came, it was to an opening out from the grip of night. We left the cabin in silence, and every step away lifted the weights settled onto our chests. The light of day no longer made the forest take on some malevolent being. It was just a forest, and the cabin just a cabin. But that experience stayed, shadowing into our friendship. We rarely ever discussed that night, almost as though bringing it up would empower the fear. But it lay there, a shared memory that bonded us in mutual, silent agreement never to go back to the whispering woods. At the end, we asked more questions than we had answers for in this foray into the unknown. Who? What had been the voices to see them back in the cabin? The truth, that which so few fools care to listen to, is that it is kept in secret within the very heart of the woods. It is whispered to the wind. It certainly was an adventure in the whispering woods, a real journey into fear, into such an experience that questions and challenges not only the world itself, but also our place in it. It's a story that murmurs to me in the dimness of the night, chilling evidence of when the borders had grown dim between legend and reality, dimming us for eternity.
Remember to subscribe. In the grips of a biting November wind, Point Pleasant, West Virginia, was more than just a quiet town. It was the center of a chilling enigma that had attracted Jack, a journalist known for chasing shadows. The year was 1966, and Jack had come following whispers of a creature as haunting as death itself, the Mothman. With each resident Jack interviewed, the legend grew denser. Eyes wide with fear, they spoke of a giant being with hypnotic red eyes and wings vast enough to blanket the light of the moon. They described a silence that fell over the woods, so heavy it smothered the wind. Animals behaved oddly. Dogs hid under houses, and the nights when Mothman appeared people reported nightmares that left them gasping awake. Delving into the town's library, Jack found newspaper clippings and police reports with mentions of the Mothman dating back decades, always appearing before disaster struck. The most chilling of these was the Silver Bridge collapse of 1967, a tragedy that seemed predicted by the creature's sudden appearance to a dozen onlookers the night before. Jack's skepticism waned as the eerie coincidences accumulated, each story weaving the Mothman into a tapestry of premonition and horror. Compelled by an obsession that had edged past professional curiosity, Jack drove to the TNT area during a thunderstorm that seemed almost summoned for the night. The old munitions plant, with its rusted gates and shadowed buildings, was the perfect haunt for a nightmare. As Jack stepped into the open, the air shifted, growing unnervingly calm before a sudden chill swept through. Behind the sound of thunder, another sound rose, a low, mournful wail that seemed both human and animal. His flashlight beam caught a fleeting glimpse of something enormous, a shadow crowned with two glowing red eyes. Then, it was before him. The Mothman towered, a specter of myths, its eyes paralyzing Jack with primal fear. It spoke in a voice like the grinding of stone, its message clear. It was a guardian, its presence a warning of nature's delicate balance, now teetering towards calamity. As dawn broke, Jack left Point Pleasant, the echo of the Mothman's prophecy lingering in his mind. The story he penned next was no ordinary article, but a confession of the night he stood at the boundary of the known world and peered into the abyss beyond. Driving away, he glanced in his rearview mirror, half expecting to see those red eyes. But there was only the road and the rustling of the trees, whispering secrets only the Mothman knew. It was a cold, foggy night when Alex stumbled upon the old Whitmore estate. The once magnificent mansion stood desolate, its windows like hollow eyes staring into the darkness. Locals avoided the place, murmuring about the eerie happenings and unexplained disappearances linked to it. But Alex, a curious and brave sound engineer, was there with his recording equipment, determined to capture the whispered legends and perhaps the very essence of fear itself. As Alex adjusted his equipment in the grand foyer, a soft, almost imperceptible whisper echoed through the air. He froze, listening intently. The voice was neither his own nor any earthly sound he could identify. Shivering, he followed the whispers that seemed to beckon him deeper into the heart of the mansion. The air grew colder with each step, and the faint light from his flashlight began to flicker. As Alex ventured deeper into the mansion, the whispers grew louder and more insistent. Each room seemed steeped in darkness, thicker than the last, as if absorbing the scant light from his flickering flashlight. The whispers morphed into hushed voices, discussing something or someone, in urgent, hushed tones. Alex couldn't make out the words, but the tone was unmistakably menacing. In the library, amidst the musty smell of old books and decay, Alex found an antique tape recorder, remarkably well preserved. He pressed play out of curiosity. A chilling voice filled the room, recounting the history of the Whitmore family, how they vanished one stormy night, leaving behind only their voices, trapped within the walls. The recording ended with a scream and the sound of something sinister laughing. Suddenly, the door slammed shut. Alex spun around, heart pounding. His own breath seemed loud in the sudden, oppressive silence that followed. The whispers started again, now clearly voices arguing feverishly. They were talking about him, about keeping him there. Panic rising, Alex searched frantically for another exit, but found the windows barred and the doors immovable. Driven by desperation, Alex decided to confront whatever haunted the Whitmore estate. He set up his recording equipment, hoping to communicate or perhaps a piece of the spirits. "Who are you?" "What do you want from me?" he shouted into the darkness. The air grew icy, and the voices ceased. A heavy, oppressive force seemed to press down on him. Then, a shadow materialized in front of him, taking a vaguely human form, its features blurred and shifting. The ghost of Nathaniel Whitmore, the last master of the house, spoke in a deep, mournful tone, revealing that the family was cursed, bound to the mansion for eternity, and that Alex was now part of their story. As Nathaniel's form approached, Alex felt the temperature drop further, and the mansion seemed to close in around him. He realized with horror that his own voice was fading, becoming part of the chorus of whispers. In a last-ditch effort, Alex grabbed the tape recorder and hurled it against the wall, breaking the cycle of voices momentarily. The spirits, startled by the sudden silence, dispersed as the mansion trembled. Seizing the moment, Alex dashed to the foyer, where the front door miraculously swung open. He sprinted out into the night, not daring to look back as the mansion groaned like a living creature in agony. Alex never returned to the Whitmore estate, leaving behind his recording equipment and a part of his soul entwined with the whispers. He often wakes up at night, cold sweat drenching his skin, hearing faint whispers calling him back. The recordings he made that night went viral online, chilling listeners with the real voices of the Whitmore curse. Yet the mystery of what truly lies within those walls remains unsolved, inviting the brave and the curious to explore, just as Alex had.
In the deep shadowed valleys of Appalachia, the mist clings to ancient pines, and the wind carries whispers of forgotten times. These woods are older than the memory of man, hiding secrets beneath their verdant cloak. Among these secrets is a chilling legend, that of the Wampus Cat, a creature born from darkness and human tragedy, a spectral being part woman, part cougar, forever cursed to roam these woods. Cherokee lore speaks of a brave woman who, armed with the magic of her people, sought to spy on the male warriors of her tribe as they gathered around their sacred fire, a place forbidden to women. She cloaked herself in the skin of a mountain lion, melding shadow and form. But as she crept closer to the flames, the magic turned against her. The elders discovered her and cursed her to live as neither human nor beast, but as the Wampus Cat, a guardian of the wilderness, tormentor to those who dare its depths. Julia and her friends, drawn by tales of the supernatural and the allure of the untamed wilderness, decide to venture into the heart of Appalachia. The group, including her brother Micah, his best friend Dan, and her college roommate Sarah, are equipped with camping gear and a thrill for adventure, oblivious to the true dangers of the ancient forest. As they trek deeper into the forest, the light dims, the air cools, and a silent tension settles around them. They laugh and share stories of ghostly encounters from other trips, mocking the very idea of the Wampus Cat. However, as night falls and the campfire flickers, unsettling sounds pierce the serenity of the woods, the unsettling cry of a creature that is both human and animal. The night grows dense, a fog rolls in, masking the moonlight. The sounds grow closer, more personal. Whispered warnings in a language forgotten by time seem to float between the trees. Mike sees shadows flit between the trunks, too large and moving too purposefully to be any normal woodland creature. Panic grips the group as they realize they are being hunted. The Wampus Cat toys with them, her cries echoing their deepest fears. Around the dying fire, Sarah reveals her deeper knowledge of the Wampus Cat. Her grandmother, part Cherokee, had passed down a ritual to appease the Wampus Cat. It involves offering a symbol of respect and acknowledging the pain and transformation of the cursed creature. The group scrambles to assemble an offering, hoping to calm the vengeful spirit. As the creature approaches, its eyes glowing with otherworldly light, the air thick with the scent of musk and rage, they present their offering. The Wampus Cat, drawn by the sincerity of their ritual, hesitates. Its cries soften, morphing from screams into a low, mournful wail. The ground beneath their feet trembles as it decides their fate. Dawn breaks over the forest, revealing the scattered remnants of the night's horrors. Only Julia, Mike, and Sarah emerge from the woods, forever changed. They leave behind not only the wilderness, but also a piece of their innocence. The legend of the Wampus Cat is no longer a piece of their innocence. The legend of the Wampus Cat is no longer just a tale to scare children. It is a profound reminder of the wild and mystical forces that dwell in the Appalachian wilderness. As they look back one last time, the forest seems unchanged, yet they leave behind the echoes of a night where legend and reality collided. The Wampus Cat, now silent, watches from the shadows, a guardian of its secrets and protector of its lore. Their survival serves as a testament to respect and understanding of the ancient spirits embedded in these mountains. As they drive away, the mist once again covers the tracks of their ordeal, and the forest reclaims its calm, waiting for the next unwary souls to venture too deep. With a newfound respect for the legends of the land, Julia and her friends carry forward a story that will be whispered in awe and fear, adding another layer to the rich tapestry of Appalachian folklore. They know now that some myths are rooted in truths far darker and deeper than the soil they spring from.
Amidst the distant rumble of thunder and the relentless pelting of rain, Emily drove her old sedan up the winding path that led to the Thompson residence. Nestled at the end of Willow's End, the Victorian house had stood for over a century, its presence almost ghostly against the backdrop of the stormy night. Despite her rational mind, Emily couldn't shake off a feeling of dread as she approached the sprawling, dimly lit mansion, known among the locals for its creaks and groans that spoke of age and decay. As she was ushered in by the Thompsons, their hurried, almost nervous demeanor did little to calm her nerves. "The kids are already in bed," Mrs. Thompson whispered, as if afraid to speak too loudly. "Just make yourself at home, dear." The door clicked shut behind them, leaving Emily alone in the echoing vastness of the foyer. As she ventured further inside, the house seemed to respond to her presence, its timbers moaning under the weight of the storm's winds while shadows danced along the walls, distorted by the flickering of the old-fashioned lights. Settling into the living room, Emily tried to distract herself with a book, but the persistent noises from upstairs, a soft thumping, a whisper of movement, kept her on edge. She told herself it was just the house settling, yet the feeling of being watched grew stronger with every gust of wind that rattled the windows. The first call broke through the silence with a jarring ring that made Emily's heart skip a beat. When she answered, the line crackled with the sound of heavy, labored breathing, followed by a low, unsettling laugh that chilled her to the bone before the caller abruptly hung up. Each subsequent call escalated her fear. The voice on the line, sinister and taunting, asked, "Why haven't you checked on the children yet?" With each word, the voice seemed closer, more personal. Frantically, Emily dialed the police, her voice quivering as she spoke. "Please, you have to help me," she pleaded. The dispatcher's reassurance did little to calm her as they promised to trace the next call. When the phone rang again, Emily answered with trembling hands, only to hear the dispatcher's urgent tone. "The call! It's coming from inside the house! Get out now!" Dropping the phone, she ran upstairs, her breaths short and sharp in her throat. As she reached the top, a shadow flickered across the hallway, too large and too real to be just another play of light and darkness. Heart pounding, Emily pushed open the door to the children's room. Sam and Ava were thankfully still asleep, oblivious to the night's horrors. With the police on their way, Emily dared to search for the source of the calls. Her discovery of a barely opened attic door led to a hidden, dust-choked room that bore the unmistakable signs of habitation. a makeshift bed, old food containers, and, most disturbingly, photographs of the house and the children. As dawn broke, the police arrived to find no sign of the intruder except for the haunting evidence left behind. Among the photographs and scattered belongings were notes written in a shaky hand, detailing times and dates when the children were alone. The realization that someone had been watching, living among them without their knowledge, sent shivers down Emily's spine. The police surmised the intruder might have used the attic as a hideout for months, slipping in and out unnoticed. They secured the house, promising to patrol the area and investigate how the intruder had accessed such a private space. As the Thompsons returned, the morning light washed over the house, seeming to cleanse it of the shadow of the night's terror. Emily recounted everything to the horrified parents, her voice steady but her hands trembling. Although the immediate danger was over, the impact of the night would linger in her mind and in the whispers of Willow's End. As she drove away from the Thompson residence, the first rays of sun piercing through the departing storm clouds, Emily knew she would never forget the night the calls came from inside the house. The ordeal had ended, but the echoes of those sinister calls and the sight of that shadow moving in the darkness would haunt her dreams for many nights to come. Journal of John Hargrove. The Forgotten Valley Encounter. Entry 1, October 12th. Arrived at Forgotten Valley as the sun began its descent behind the high cliffs. The locals were visibly uneasy about my intentions to camp here overnight. They warned of skinwalkers and pleaded with me to respect their traditions by avoiding the valley after dark. I assured them of my respect while quietly dismissing their superstitions as mere folklore. I'm set up near what they call the Heart Tree, a central point in their tales. I plan to document everything scientifically to demystify these legends. The air is cool, and the silence is palpable as night approaches. Entry 2, October 12th. Later. The sun has set, leaving a cascade of colors behind it. As twilight fades, every sound seems amplified. I've heard distant howls, probably coyotes, yet they send a chill down my spine despite my skepticism. The locals' warnings echo in my mind, creating an unexpected edge of anxiety. Shadows lengthen, and the wind carries an almost whispered warning through the valley. I've set up my recording equipment and camera to capture any wildlife activity, aiming to provide logical explanations for the supposed supernatural occurrences reported here. I'll stay awake to monitor any movements or sounds, ready to debunk these myths once and for all. Entry 3, October 13th, early hours. The night is alive with sounds, and my initial confidence is wavering. The howls have grown not just closer, but also strangely varied, as if more than one type of creature lurks out there. A couple of times, I thought I saw something. Large, indistinct shapes moving swiftly past the edge of the campsite light. My camera's night mode has only captured blurs, which are intriguing, yet inconclusive. A sudden wind extinguished my fire, plunging my camp into darkness. The temperature has dropped sharply, and an oppressive silence has settled around me, broken intermittently by rustling leaves and what could only be described as soft, menacing growls. I find myself clutching the camera more for comfort than readiness. There's a palpable sense of being watched, and for the first time, I regret being alone. I can't shake the feeling that there's something fundamentally unnatural about what's unfolding. I'm starting to understand the locals' fear. There's something in the valley that doesn't want me here. Entry 4, October 13th, dawn. I survived the night, but my views on the Navajo legends will never be the same. Just before dawn, when the darkness was at its deepest, I encountered what I can only describe as a skinwalker. It emerged from the shadows, a grotesque silhouette of a creature that seemed both man and beast, its eyes glowing a fierce red. It stood there, watching me, as if curious about my presence. I remembered a name the locals had whispered, fearing even to say it aloud, and in a moment of pure instinct, I called it out. The creature recoiled as if struck, then vanished into the mist that began to rise with the early morning sun. The encounter was brief, but utterly terrifying, leaving me with a profound sense of vulnerability and disbelief. As I pack up my camp, I'm left to ponder the arrogance of my disbelief and the wisdom embedded in the Navajo traditions. I came here to expose myths, but instead, I leave with a deep respect for these stories and their roots in something inexplicably real. This journal will serve as both my scientific record and a personal testament to the encounter. Whether this will prove anything to anyone is uncertain, but for me, the truth of the Skinwalkers is no longer just a legend, it's a haunting reality. Entry 5. October 13th, late morning. As I leave Forgotten Valley, the weight of last night's experiences hangs heavy on me. The beauty of the valley belies the terror it harbored under the cloak of night. My skepticism has been replaced with a cautious reverence for the unknown. This journal is my witness to the fact that some places hold deeper secrets than science can explain. To those who read this, never underestimate the power of ancient beliefs and the mysteries they preserve. They are, perhaps, the last reminders of how little we truly understand about the natural and supernatural world. Remember to subscribe and comment, what would you like to see next?
The Midnight Gallery. Lena had always been a fan of art, especially the bizarre and unsettling kind. When she stumbled upon an advertisement for the Midnight Gallery, her interest peaked. The gallery was open only from midnight until 3 a.m., promising a collection that crosses the boundaries between dreams and reality. Curiosity got the better of her. After some contemplation, she decided to visit. Clock struck midnight, and Lena found herself in front of an inconspicuous building with dim lighting and a sign that read, "The Midnight Gallery. Enter at your own risk." The door creaked as she entered. A disheveled man behind the counter handed her a map. "Stay within the boundaries," he said, his eyes avoiding hers. The art was as intriguing as it was unsettling. Each piece seemed to pull her deeper into its universe. Portraits with eyes that seemed to follow her, landscapes that morphed upon the second glance, sculptures that whispered incoherent words. Then she reached the room labeled the final piece. It was a mirror, framed with intricate, archaic symbols. The placard read, "The masterpiece, a reflection of your deepest fears." Intrigued yet hesitant, Lena looked into the mirror, her reflection distorted, morphing into a gruesome version of herself. It grinned wickedly and began to reach out. Panicked, Lena turned to leave but found that the exit had vanished. Her distorted reflection started stepping out of the mirror, into the room, into her reality. Remembering the man's words, she frantically scanned the map. Her eyes widened as she noticed a tiny asterisk next to the final piece, and in tiny letters, "Re-entry not guaranteed." Her heartbeat pounded in her ears as the distorted version closed in, a twisted caricature of her own face leering inches away from her. Just when she thought she would be swallowed by this monstrosity, her hand brushed against a symbol on the frame, identical to one on the map. Pressing it, the room shuddered. The exit reappeared, and her doppelganger was sucked back into the mirror with a bone-chilling scream. Gasping for air, Lena sprinted out of the gallery, past the disheveled man who looked up just long enough to say, "Some art should never be seen." As she got into her car, She glanced at the rearview mirror and froze. For a split second, she saw the twisted version of herself grinning back. Even now, years later, Lena avoids mirrors, terrified of what might be waiting on the other side. But sometimes, in the dead of night, she hears whispers. Reminders that some boundaries, once crossed, can never be undone. And so, dear listener, if you ever stumble upon an advertisement for the Midnight Gallery, heed this tale and think twice before you step into a world where nightmares take form. Sweet dreams.
Good evening, listeners. You're tuned into Wraithwave Radio Station, and I'm your host, Mark Blythe. Remember to subscribe for our channel to get more of this awesome content. Tonight, we've got a special guest, someone who claims to have knowledge about the recent series of unexplained events happening in Soraya, Sendai. Please, welcome, Eli Warren.
Thank you, Mark. Pleasure to be here.
So, Eli, what can you tell us about these events?
It's all interconnected, Mark. Every event, every sighting. It's a message.
A message from who?
Not from who, but from where, a place beyond our understanding.
Apologies, listeners. A bit of interference there. So, Eli, what's the nature of this message?
It's a warning and an invitation.
That's a contradiction.
Is it? The sun warns you with its heat, yet invites you with its light.
We've received a text from a listener named Jenny. She asks, I've been hearing these whispers on various frequencies, especially late at night. Is that related?
Ah, the whispers. Yes, they're part of it. They are beckonings.
Beckonings for what?
To tune in deeper. To listen. To act.
Another message from Tom. After listening to one such whisper, I had a nightmare. Saw a shadow standing at the foot of my bed. Eli?
The shadows are watchers. They observe those who've tuned in, deciding their worthiness.
Worthiness for what?
For the transition.
We seem to have lost some of our connection. Eli, you mentioned a transition. Could you elaborate?
It's the next step, Mark. Those deemed worthy will be part of the new world.
And those who aren't?
They remain lost in the static.
What's happening? Our systems are.
It's beginning. For those listening, heed the whispers. They guide you.
Guide to where?
To us. To them. To the beyond.
Listeners, Arzo know what's going on, but apologies, listeners. We're back. Had a technical glitch. Eli, are you? Eli.
Eli won't be joining us anymore.
Who are you?
Call me Lydia. I'm here to continue where Eli left off.
Where is she?
Transitioned.
What does that even mean?
Relax, Mark. The transition is not to be feared, but embraced.
Listeners, if you're hearing this, please send help. I'm at the Wraithwave Studio downtown.
No one's coming, Mark. Let's continue our discussion.
All right, what do you want?
Only for you and our listeners to understand. The whispers, the shadows, they're not here to harm. They're ushering in a new era.
But the nightmares? The fear? How do you explain that?
Change is always frightening, Mark. It's the unknown we fear. But once we're part of it, once we transition, the fear evaporates.
Please, stop this. I don't want to transition.
You might not have a choice, Mark. Once you tune in, the process begins.
But I didn't.
Didn't what? Play the whispers? Listen to them? Broadcast them? Every listener, every soul touched by the frequency is now part of the grand design.
The studio door, there's something outside.
The shadows. They're here for the final broadcast.
The final broadcast.
Yes, the one where the world listens and everyone transitions.
Listeners, prepare. The final broadcast is imminent. Will you be ready?
Listeners, I don't know how much time I have. The studio is surrounded by shadows. Lydia, she's gone. Just vanished. I found this old radio transmitter in the storage room. I'm locked in here, trying to reach out one last time. I see things in the static. Faces, memories, whispers of events that haven't occurred yet. No, stay back.
Calm yourself, Mark. I'm not one of them.
Who are you?
Jonathan, I've been tracking these phenomena, trying to find a way to halt the transition. Lydia, Eli, the shadows. They're agents of the frequency.
Can we stop it?
I've managed to create a counter-frequency, a way to jam their signal, but I need to broadcast it from here, from the source of the original transmission.
The shadows. They're pressing against the door. I don't know how much time we have.
Help me set this up. If we broadcast the counter-frequency, we might stand a chance. It's working. The counter-frequency is live.
The whispers. They're fading.
Mark, hold them back. I need a few more seconds.
I am trying. They're everywhere.
Done. The broadcast is complete.
Are they gone?
For now. But we've only bought some time. The frequency, the shadows, they won't stop.
What do we do?
We prepare, Mark. We find others like us. We spread the counter frequency, warn people, and brace ourselves for what's next.
And that is?
A battle for control over reality itself.
This might be my last transmission. The studio is silent, the once bustling city outside now hushed. Those shadows, those agents of the haunting frequency, they're still out there, waiting, watching. With Jonathan's help, we've secured the studio. We've set up the counter frequency to loop indefinitely, a beacon of hope in this overwhelming darkness.
Mark, it's time.
Jonathan has devised a plan. We're going to try and trace the origin of the cursed frequency to put an end to this once and for all. But if we don't return, if this is truly the end, I want everyone listening to remember, you are not alone. The static may whisper, the shadows may loom, but hope, resilience, and unity will always pierce through the darkest night. Stay strong, stay connected, and always question what you hear in the whispers of the static.
We'll be back, Mark. The world needs to hear our story. Our fight.
Yes, we'll be back. Until then, dear listeners, keep your radios on, stay close to your loved ones, and know that even in the darkest moments, there's always a glimmer of light waiting to break through. To anyone listening, this is the Haven's Beacon. The northeast quadrant is swarming. I advise staying clear. Mason, if you're out there, head south. There's an untouched grocery store at Maple and 5th. Remember to subscribe to our broadcast.
Got it, Riley. Heading south. I've also been picking up snippets from our mystery broadcaster. Got another riddle today.
Be careful with those, Mason. We can't verify them.
In shadows of past, where man dared to cast, lies truth under glass, a memory so vast.
He's leading me somewhere, Riley. I can feel it. These aren't just riddles, they're pieces of a puzzle.
Stay sharp, Mason. Remember, our priority is supplies and safety.
Riley, you won't believe it. I followed the riddle. It led me to an old research facility, covered in vines and dust. There's so much here. Files, videos, equipment.
Mason, be careful. It could be a trap.
It's not. I found video logs, Riley. The world. It faced a pandemic years before the outbreak. These videos. Scientists talk about genetic mutations, potential changes due to the virus. They hinted at aggressive behaviors.
What are you saying, Mason?
I think the zombie outbreak was a consequence. A dormant genetic change activated from that virus. The world was already on its knees, and then this.
This changes everything. Do you think there's a cure? A way to reverse it?
I don't know, but there are so many documents. Maybe the answers are here.
Truth is heavy, burden vast. in shadows it was cast. Share or hide, the choice is vast.
He knew, Riley. The mystery man knew about this.
Gather whatever you can, Mason. We need to understand this. But be quick. We don't know who else might be listening or coming for you.
I've secured some files. This place. It's eerie. Echoes of a past world trying to prevent its doom. I'm heading back, Riley.
We're here for you. Get back safe. We'll unravel this together.
Almost at the Haven's gates. The city feels different knowing what I know. These once bustling streets, now silent save for the moans of the undead, hold a heavier secret than I thought.
We see you approaching the east gate. Security's been informed. Come straight to the control room when you're in.
When truth emerges, some will deny, some will cry. Tread carefully, for in the light of revelation, darkness often lies.
What does he mean, Riley? Is he warning us or threatening us?
I don't know, Mason, but we'll face it together. Lay it out for us, Mason.
From what I could gather, the virus from years ago altered human DNA. Not everyone, just a fraction. But it was enough. Over time, those changes became active, leading to what we see now. But the logs suggest there was a possible antidote. They were close.
Do you think it's still out there? The antidote?
There are references to a sister facility. A place where the final tests were being conducted.
Then that's the next move.
Seek, and you might find. But remember, some doors, once opened, cannot be closed. The sister facility hides more than hope. It holds despair.
We can't ignore this, Riley. Even if there's a sliver of hope, we have to pursue it.
I agree. We'll prepare a team. But Mason, be ready for anything. The mystery man's words are never empty.
Riley, we've set up in a derelict police station for the night. There's an underground evidence lockup. We'll investigate tomorrow. Might find useful supplies.
Stay alert, Mason. The old city isn't safe.
Where justice once stood, beneath the weight of misunderstood, lies an artifact of the old neighborhood. Seek wisely, for not all that's wood is good.
Riddles in the dead of night? He's pointing us to something here, Riley.
Could be a trap, Mason. We tread cautiously at daybreak.
This has to be what he was pointing us to. But why here? Why a police station?
Maybe the answer's within. Open it.
Riley, this cult. They believed in transcending humanity. What if the pandemic, the outbreak, What if it wasn't an accident?
You're suggesting someone did this on purpose. But why?
Some doors, once opened, cannot be shut. Be wary of the truths you seek. Humanity's evolution was no mere fluke.
This vial, it's like nothing I've ever seen. The glow, the consistency, it's almost alive.
Secure it. We need to study that back at the Haven. As for the photos and articles, they might give us more leads.
There's a note here, buried under the rest. It's addressed to the Seeker, Riley. I think it's meant for me. To the Seeker, when mankind sought to ascend, we guided the path, shaping the future, designing the aftermath. Find the temple where our ancestors sat and learn of the world before its combat.
A temple? This is becoming more critical. Moment.
There are rumors, whispers really, about a place up north. It's said to be where the cult held their most sacred rituals.
That's our next destination. But tread cautiously, Mason. We're diving into waters far deeper than we anticipated.
We are close to the temple. These zombies. They're changing, evolving. It's like they're drawn to the temple too.
Stay on guard. Remember, the temple might hold answers, but it could also house more threats.
We're here. The temple's inscriptions match those in the photographs. But there's a silence, an unnatural calm. Riley, this altar, it's waiting. 2 vials are missing. The one I have fits the second slot.
The mystery man mentioned evolution. Could these vials represent stages? Past, present, and future.
The past is known, the present is shown. Seek the future, but beware. Not all destinies are meant to be shared.
Riley, it's a trap. The moment I placed the vial, the temple began to rumble. The floor gave way beneath some of us, and traps sprung from everywhere. We separated.
Mason, get out of there. Retreat and regroup.
The zombies. They're different here. Smarter, faster. They seem attuned to the temple's energy. And they're on our tail. We've lost Jones and Ramirez. The temple's traps got them. We're trying to find an exit, but every door seems to lead to more danger.
Keep moving. Remember your training. And use the temple's traps to your advantage against the zombies.
We've found an underground river. It's fast flowing, but it might be our only escape.
Use it. We'll track your signal and prepare an extraction point downstream.
We're clear. For now. We're injured, cold, and lost, but alive.
Stay with me, Mason. Keep the radio on. We'll guide you home.
We're making our way through these hidden pathways. It seems like they're guiding us closer to the Haven, but it's still a distance away. The gramophone's tune still rings in my ears like a beacon.
Stay on course. We're trying to reach you, but there's a growing horde between us. The noise from the temple might have attracted more zombies than we anticipated.
There are symbols here, Riley. They resemble constellations. And there's a phrase, when the stars align, the path shall shine. Does that mean anything?
Constellations. Could it be a navigation tool? Wait, there were old legends, tales passed down, about using stars to guide the way.
It's a map. The stars, they align with the chamber's inscriptions. There's a path illuminated by the moonlight. We're following it.
Good, but be cautious. The closer you get to the haven, the more zombies you might encounter. Rest now. Continue your journey tomorrow.
Someone's been through here recently. The supplies are fresh. It's as if they knew we'd be coming this way.
It could be the Mystery Man. Keep an eye out for any signs or clues about his identity or intentions.
It's a letter. The path you tread is perilous, but necessary. The haven is not the end, but a beginning. Trust the stars, for they've seen the world's past and will guide you to its future. It's signed with an emblem, the same one from the temple.
This is all interconnected. The temple, the caves, the Mystery Man, and now the stars. We need to piece this puzzle together.
We're nearing the exit, Riley. The inscriptions point to a narrow passageway leading to the surface. But we can hear the restless moans of zombies. It sounds like there's a horde right outside.
Mason, be careful. Set up traps if you can. Use the environment to your advantage. We can't lose you now, not after all you've uncovered.
We're going to create a diversion. Set off a loud noise further down the cave to draw the zombies away. Once they're lured inside, we can block the entrance and make our escape. Now's our chance. Move. There are more symbols here, Riley. And a map. It shows a route to the haven, but it's marked with various points, each with a different emblem.
Those emblems. They might correspond to locations of significance. Places tied to the Mystery Man, or perhaps to the origins of the outbreak. Mason, this might be our best lead yet.
It's like a breadcrumb trail. Each location answers one question but poses 10 more. The Mystery Man. He's not just a witness. He's been instrumental in this entire saga. We're close, Riley. We can see the haven's walls. But there's one last location marked on the map. It's just outside the gates.
We'll be ready for you. But remember, every answer could change everything we thought we knew. Approach with caution.
Riley, the Mystery Man. He was one of the founders of the Haven.
What? But that means he's been guiding us from the very beginning, even before the world fell apart. listening to the Haven's Beacon, the last voice of humanity in a world consumed by shadows. Remember to subscribe to our broadcast. We have created safe place for all of us, the Haven.
Riley, I'm at the town. Going in to grab the meds.
Be careful, Mason. And remember, the Mystery Man's marks are everywhere. The Haven is watching.
This place, untouched. But why? Another radio, and this note. That emblem. It's him.
Didn't expect anyone to be here. Looking for meds, are you?
Who is this? Show yourself.
Relax. I see you found one of his notes. The Mystery Man has a way of leaving traces, doesn't he?
What do you want?
Just to remind you, the beacon shines for those who seek. Remember that.
Mason, report. Did you get the meds?
Got them. But someone else is here, watching. And they know about the Mystery Man.
Return immediately. We'll decode this together. The Haven awaits.
I think I've been made. There's movement outside. And it's not just the dead.
Stay low. Remember your training. Get out if it gets dicey.
They're here. I've got to go now.
Mason, report.
Had to shoot one, but the sound's drawing more of them. I need a way out.
Head west towards the old service station. You might find some ammo there.
Almost out of bullets. I'm at the service station.
Go inside. Check the storage room. Hurry.
Found some. I'm restocked, but there's something else here.
What is it?
It's a map with the emblem of the Mystery Man on it. There's a path marked on it, leading away from here.
Hold on to that. We'll decipher it when you're safe. For now, just get out of there.
I think I've lost them. Heading back to the safe point.
Good. We have much to discuss. You're back on the Haven's Beacon. Mason, report in.
I'm just outside the Haven's walls, but something's wrong. Davis got bitten.
Which type? Was it standard or...
One of the mutated ones. The bite. It's different, spreading faster.
You know what needs to be done.
It's done. Davis is gone. Let me in. Open the gates.
Sorry for Davis. But now, there's something else. The Mystery Man. He's been in contact again.
Now, with everything going on...
He left this message for you. Another puzzle. Not all shadows are cast equally. Some move faster, some linger. Know your enemy.
It's variations of the virus, each one different, each one coded. What's he trying to tell us? The mutations. He's giving us clues on the different strains. Davis, if only we'd known sooner.
The mystery man knows more than he lets on. But why the riddles? Why not just tell us?
There's got to be a reason. We just have to figure it out. That map from the service station. It's not just a map. There are codes, symbols, all linked to the variations of the virus.
There's something else. We received another transmission from the mystery man. He left a message for you. Play it?
Not all shadows are cast equally. Some lurk while others chase. One holds the key to salvation, but choose wisely. Time isn't on your side.
What does that mean? Salvation? From the virus?
Perhaps a cure, or a specific strain that's less lethal. We need to decipher this, and quickly.
I think these symbols on map, locations, they might be where we can find the answers. But if we choose the wrong one,
we might not get another chance. We'll analyze this tonight. Rest up, Mason. Tomorrow, we begin our search. What was that?
It's coming from inside the Haven.
You're back on the Haven's beacon. Mason, report.
We have a problem. That scream, it came from the medical bay.
What happened?
I don't know, but I'm heading there now. I need backup.
I'm sending out a security detail to your location. Stay sharp.
There are infected inside the Haven. Someone left one of the side gates open.
Secure the gate. We can't let more in.
Gates secure. The infected are contained. But there's something else.
Go on.
Among the infected, I found this. A note. Every shadow hides a truth, but not all truth should be uncovered. It's from the mystery man.
Why would he send infected to us? What's his game?
I don't know, but we need to find out. We've got bigger problems than just zombies.
This is the Haven's beacon. We thought we were safe, but the shadows of our past are catching up.
We need answers. Every corner I turn, there's another riddle, another thread leading to the mystery man.
You're not the only one. We're all being tested, manipulated.
Do you hear that? What is that sound?
It's coming from the northern perimeter. I'm seeing lights, no, symbols, projected onto the walls of the Haven.
I'm heading there now.
Be careful. I've got a bad feeling about this.
It's a projection. Symbols, sequences. It's another message from him.
What does it say?
It says, "Behind the veil of safety, the truth awaits. Do you dare to pull it aside?"
This isn't just about survival anymore. He's challenging our very understanding of this apocalypse. But why?
I don't know, but we're going to find out. He's just started a game he might not be prepared to finish.